Everyone remembers their first day at work. It feels exciting. It feels scary too. New place, new people, new rules. But it is also the start of a new journey. This story will take you through one person's first day at work. It will use very simple and common daily life sentences. It happened. You can practice English with it. Let's begin.
My alarm rang early in the morning. I opened my eyes slowly. It was still a little dark outside. I stretched my arms. I said, "Today is my first day at work." I felt happy. I felt nervous too. I got out of bed. I went to the bathroom. I brushed my teeth. I washed my face. I looked in the mirror. I said to myself, "You can do it." I took a shower. The water was cold at first. I turned it to warm. I felt fresh. I came out and dried myself. I combed my hair. I put on some nice clothes. I wanted to look smart. I chose a light blue shirt. I wore black pants. I tied my shoes tightly. I checked my watch. Time was running fast. I went to the kitchen. I made some breakfast. I boiled an egg. I toasted some bread. I poured a cup of tea. I ate quickly. I washed my plate. I packed a sandwich for lunch. I filled my water bottle. I looked at my bag. I put my notebook inside. I put my pen inside. I checked my wallet. I checked my phone. Everything was ready. I said goodbye to my mum. She smiled. She said, "Good luck, son." Her voice gave me courage. I hugged her. I left home. The sun was rising. The air was fresh. Birds were singing. I walked to the bus stop. I waited for the bus. The bus came. I got inside. I looked around. Many people were sitting. Some people were standing. I found a seat near the window. I sat down. I looked outside. The city was waking up. Shops were opening. People were walking fast. Cars were honking. I thought about my new job. I thought about my boss. I thought about my new friends. I felt nervous again. I told myself, "Stay calm." I breathed deeply. The bus stopped near my office. I got down. I looked at the big building. It was tall. It was shiny. I walked to the gate. The guard smiled at me. He said, "Good morning." I said, "Good morning." He asked, "First day?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Good luck." I smiled. I entered the building. Inside, the floor was clean. The lights were bright. Many people were walking. Some people were talking on phones. Some people were carrying files. Everyone looked busy. I found the reception desk. A lady was sitting there. She smiled at me. She said, "Hello, how can I help you?" I said, "I am new here. Today is my first day." She asked, "What is your name?" I said, "My name is Alex." She checked her computer. She said, "Yes, welcome, Alex. Please wait a moment." She made a phone call. Then she said, "Someone will come for you." I said, "Thank you." I sat in a chair near the desk. I looked around. People were entering. People were leaving. I felt like a small part of a big place. After a few minutes, a man came. He looked friendly. He smiled. He said, "Hello, Alex. I am Mr. John, the manager." I stood up quickly. I shook his hand. I said, "Nice to meet you, sir." He said, "Nice to meet you, too." He asked, "Are you ready for your first day?" I said, "Yes, I am ready." He said, "Good. Follow me." We walked together. They entered an elevator. He pressed a button. The elevator went up. I felt a little nervous again. The elevator stopped. We came out. We walked into an office room. There were many desks. People were typing. People were writing. Some people were talking quietly. Mr. John said, "This is your new office." I looked around. It was nice. I liked it. He showed me a desk. He said, "This will be your desk." I put my bag down. I sat in the chair. I felt good. Mr. John looked around. He said, "Let me introduce you to the team." I stood up. I followed him. We walked to the first desk. A woman was working on her computer. She looked up. She smiled. Mr. John looked around. "Senibol de Never," John said. "This is Sarah. She works in accounts." I said, "Hello, nice to meet you." She said, "Nice to meet you too. Welcome to the team." Her voice was kind. I felt relaxed. We walked to another desk. A man was writing something. Mr. John said, "This is David. He is in sales." I said, "Hello, David." He shook my hand. He said, "Hi, Alex. Welcome. Don't worry. First days are always easy." Say. I laughed. He laughed too. Then Mr. John introduced me to more people. There was Lisa. There was James. There was Emma. Each person smiled. Each person said, "Welcome." I felt happy. I felt like I was part of a family. Mr. John took me to a small room. He said, "This is the meeting room." I looked inside. There was a big table. There were chairs around it. There was a whiteboard. He said, "We use this room for meetings." I nodded. Then he showed me the kitchen. He said, "You can make tea or coffee here." There was a fridge. There was a microwave. There were cups. There were plates. I said, "Thank you, sir." Then he showed me the washroom. He said, "This is for staff use only." I said, "Okay." Finally he said, "Always remember to be on time." Fi ao ti. Ulias. Remember to be on time. I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Always be polite to everyone." He said, "Always be polite to everyone." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "And never be afraid to ask questions." I smiled. I said, "Thank you. I will remember." Returned to my desk. I opened my notebook. I took out my pen. I looked at my computer. It was clean and new. I pressed the power button. The computer started. The screen was bright. A man came near me. He said, "Hi, Alex. I sit next to you. My name is Daniel." I said, "Hi, Daniel. Nice to meet you." He said, The internet. Password is on the board. I looked. Yes, it was written there. I said, got it. Mr. John came to me. He said, Alex, I have a small task for you. I stood up. I said, yes, sir. He gave me some papers. He said, please type these into the computer. I said, sure. I sat down. I started typing. I shakta, is Kai said. I checked each word. I didn't want to make mistakes. I worked slowly, but I worked well. Daniel looked at me. He said, good job. You type fast. I smiled. I said, thank you. I finished the work. I gave the papers back to Mr. John. He checked them. He said, well done, Alex. Good start. I felt proud. I said, thank you, sir. A bell rang. Daniel said, it's coffee break time. I said, oh, nice. We both went to the kitchen. Many people were there. Some were making tea. Some were drinking coffee. Some were talking. Ambor. Everyone looked friendly. Sarah asked me, do you want coffee or tea? I said, I'll take tea. She made tea for me. She gave me a cup. I said, thank you so much. We all sat together. We talked. David said, where do you live, Alex? I said, I live near the park. Lisa said, that's a nice area. I said, yes, it is. Emma asked, what do you like to do in your free time? I said, I like reading. I like walking too. She said, that's nice. I like work. I locking. The break ended. We all returned to our desks. I felt more comfortable now. The office felt like home. Mr. John gave me another task. He said, Alex, can you send an email to this client? I said, yes, sir. He gave me the client's name. He gave me the message. I opened my email. I typed the message. I checked the spelling. I checked the address. Then I clicked send. Mr. John said, good work. I said, thank you. Michelle, Daniel looked at me. Soon it was lunchtime. It is. Everyone stood up. People took out their lunchboxes. Some went to the canteen. Some stayed at their desks. Daniel said, Alex, come with us. We all went to the canteen. The canteen was big. There were many tables. There was good smell of food. People were laughing. People were laughing. People were eating. I took out my sandwich. Daniel said, what did you bring? I said, just a sandwich. He said, looks tasty. I smiled. Sarah had pasta. David had rice. Lisa had salad. Emma had pizza. We all shared bites. We laughed. We talked about movies. We talked about music.